Right. Hello, everyone. Welcome, everyone, to the 8th edition of IberoDocs. I'm Sara Mediavilla, and we're going to have here Danielle as well, who's going to be doing BSL interpretation for accessibility purposes. So I'm going to describe myself. As I said, I'm Sara Mediavilla, and I am sitting on a chair in a studio with many books behind me. And I have like dark hair on a braid, and yeah, I'm here with Arami Ullón as well, the director of Nothing But the Sun, the film that we hope you've seen and enjoyed very much. And we're gonna let Arami describe herself as well. Thank you, Arami.
Hello, my name is Arami. I'm the director of Nothing But the Sun, as Sarah just said. I have short hair and I have a kind of a yellowish t-shirt with a grayish pullover, and I'm sitting in my living room.
Thank you, Arami. Well, that's perfect. Now that we've done the introductions, I'm Sara again. Sorry, I'm gonna introduce myself every time I speak, so Danielle has time, knows who's speaking every time. So I said I work for Survival National, which is the global movement for Indigenous people's rights. For more than 25 years, we have been campaigning for the Ayoreos lands rights, which is the culture that is being represented in the film, in Arami's film. And we're asking people to email the Paraguayan government to demand that their lands are fully protected. And we will be sharing the link just in case you want to join us in that petition, which would be great. And saying that, we're going to start the Q&A with Arami. I'm going to ask her some questions, and then after those, I will be reading also the questions that you have for Arami out loud, so she has time to reply to those as well. So yeah, thank you so much, Arami, for being here with us. And I just wanted to start with the uncontacted people that is still in the forest, that Ayoreo people that have been contacted already referred to in the film. The Ayoreo are the only uncontacted indigenous people living outside the Amazon forest in America. They live in the heart of the Paraguayan Gran Chaco, which is the forest with the fastest rates of deforestation in the whole world. And this is actually quite shocking. And several Ayoreo groups have been contacted by the mainstream society in recent years. As a result, many of them have suffered from respiratory diseases such as tuberculosis, and many have died. They also suffered a process of transculturation as a result of their traditions being condemned by the missionaries, who are also mentioned in the film, who forced them into this mainstream society. Arami, first question for you. Could you tell us a bit more about your experience filming with people that have been contacted so recently by mainstream society, just taking into account that the last contact was in 2004, if I'm correct?
Yes, this is Arami speaking again. Sarah, yes, when I was shooting, most people I was working with were contacted when they were children. So that is about 50, in the 50s or in the 60s, they were taken out of the forest. And even though that amount of time, we can think that that is a very long amount of time, the shock of the contact is still happening. It's still leaving traces. It's such a shock that it cannot be overcome so easily. Mateo was taken, Mateo, the protagonist of our film, was taken out of the forest when he was 11 years old. And during that contact, most of his group died, also by measles, and including his parents. So that is the experience I have working with them. I haven't worked with people that were taken out in the 2000s. So I don't have that experience, but I must say that even though they were taken out in the 50s or in the 60s, they are still struggling to kind of understand this completely different way of living, and to lead a sedentarized life when they were originally nomads, and to have all of a sudden the obligation, or they are forced to leave their beliefs behind, and start believing in the God of the whites, and all of these things are happening to them. So it's a very traumatic experience. Yeah.
Thank you, Arami. And I'm reading here a question from someone from the audience, which is very related to the question that I was going to do. So I'm just going to jump in because it's basically the same question that I had. Did you recognize some signs of these illnesses that we mentioned before when you were there, and how they could adapt themselves to this and the pandemic? Do you know how they are dealing with the pandemic and coping with the pandemic at the moment?
Well, as you said, there are many Ayoreo living with tuberculosis. And that makes them more vulnerable. The contacted Ayoreo are basically suffering the COVID in the same way that the poorest segments of Paraguayan society are suffering it. That is to say that they have a very precarious sanitary coverage. There were several men and women dying as a result of COVID in the past few months. However, there are people in the field trying to help them understand how they can protect themselves better. And that has had a really big impact. They have learned methods and strategies to deal with the COVID, although they don't have access, as you know, good access to water. That is a big problem. Mm-hmm. But one aspect that is helping them is the tradition of living their lives outdoors. You know, most of the Ayoreo life it's happening outdoors, so that is a fact that is helping them a little bit in this process. And the other thing is that the elderly can stay. In most cases, they can stay in the communities, and so they are not so much in contact with other groups. That is not what is happening with the youngest generations, because they are the ones who need to go out to the communities in order to get jobs. Mm-hmm. As soon as that happens, they need to get in contact with Brazilian ranchers, with Mennonite missionaries and ranchers, and these surrounding societies are, of course, it's easier to get infected when you get in contact with these surrounding societies. So that is the big risk. They cannot stop working, so the young people need to keep on doing that. And the risk is that when they come back to the communities, that they bring the virus with them. But there is a lot of work being done in trying to protect them. Mm-hmm. But this is not the government who is doing this. This is just, I mean, of course, you know that it's not the government, the Paraguayan government, who is taking care of this, and also not about giving them information.
Yeah. And it seems that they are constantly surrounded by these dangers, which, as you just mentioned, ranchers and agribusinesses and missionaries. It seems like that they are always the danger surrounding Ayoreo people. So linking to that a little bit, sorry, I forgot to say, this is Sara speaking again. The uncontacted Ayoreo live surrounded by the deforestation, and the already contacted Ayoreo as well. the deforestation caused by the agribusinesses. One of Survival International's main campaigns fights for recognizing the essential role that indigenous peoples have in preserving nature and forests, because actually 80% of the world's biodiversity is on indigenous territories. This is not a coincidence. They are the best guardians of nature, and the case of the Ayoreo is the perfect example for this. Their territorial rights must be protected. This is one of the things that we fight for in survival, for them and for their uncontacted relatives and for nature. Could you please share your views, Arami, on this aspect? What do you think about them being central for the conservation efforts worldwide?
Absolutely, they are essential for the conservation, but we also have to say that actually they are essential by themselves. And I like to think in those terms, because all of a sudden, when I started showing this film in many different places in the world, some people get more moved by the preservation of trees, and sometimes we don't remember that actually there are also humans that are dependent on these forests. They are very much dependent on the existence of these forests. And I'm also convinced that what the Ayoreo need the most at the very moment is to have a constant and stable access to a legal defense fund. Meaning that, as you know, the Paraguayan state have laws that actually would protect the rights and would guarantee them the access to land and territory, but in reality that is not happening. So they need a group of lawyers, a group of people that in solidarity will help them to go through these legal processes to get their land back. But for that, it is very important that this fund is created, because those are normally very long processes. It can take years just with one single case, so it's very expensive. And we are also from the production and with some people that work with us in Paraguay, like Iniciativa Motocodie, we are trying to reinforce a legal funding for the Ayoreo to get their land back.
That's really good, and I hope that happens soon, before more deforestation and more uncontacted Ayoreo people are forced into outside of the forest. So it's probably a very urgent thing that should happen soon. I would also like to talk about a little bit the culture and the traditions and the songs that appear in the film. It's a very powerful ethnographic report, I would say, as well. The film, IberoDocs 8th edition highlights. Sorry, again, I forgot to say, this is Sara speaking again. IberoDocs 8th edition highlights that both in our darkest as well as our brightest moments, art in any of its forms has become a necessary and faithful companion. As mentioned before, Ayoreo people have been forced to abandon their culture, traditions, and songs, to the point that some of them even feel ashamed of living in the old ways. This is something that appears in the film as well. Would you like to tell us a bit more, Arami, about this aspect of the Ayoreo that is mentioned in the film, the way where they've been forced into abandoning their cultures and they even feel ashamed of it?
Yeah, absolutely. The colonial process that they went through has really, really strong effects on every aspect of their lives, and of course on culture. However, we need to say that the Ayoreo people are still speaking Ayoreo. They are, most of them, they try to keep the language as it is, and they try not to mix it with other languages. We have to also think that, as we said before, they are surrounded by other societies that are speaking different languages around them. We can name Spanish, but also Portuguese, because of, you know, a lot of the Chaco is taken by Brazilian ranchers, and of course they also listen a lot of German too. Especially because of the Mennonites that are in the region. And there is a strong decision, a strong desire of keeping the language and not giving up on their language. That is very interesting. And of course, they keep on singing their traditional songs, although in many of the communities, it has been forbidden.
Right.
Yeah, because the traditional Ayoreo songs are mostly shamanic songs, and shamanism has been treated something from the evil. It goes against what the missionaries were teaching since their arrival. So they resist. Most of them, they are still singing. Maybe they don't do it so openly because of this repression, but they try to keep it, as well as the storytelling. They have like an oral storytelling. They call it dramatization, and is another way of telling stories. And of course, they have still very strongly the oral tradition of talking to each other, taking time and space to talk and remember collectively. So I think these are all ways of resisting of the Ayoreo culture at the moment.
That's fantastic that that's happening. And then they are, as we can see in the film as well, the main character is keeping all these, recording all these traditional songs and traditional culture in these tapes. So it's definitely a very essential part for keeping human diversity in general. So it's a win for everyone. And just to wrap up a little bit, but related as well, Sara, speaking again, sorry, to relate to what we've just said, it caught my ear that the Ayoreo songs that we've been speaking about have a different harmony to Westernized music, which some might not understand or even reject as it being music. In the film, we see two different artistic cultural expressions, yours as a documentary director and the one from the Ayoreo culture. As mentioned before, IberoDocs 8th edition highlights art as being a necessity in any expression. How do you understand art as a necessity and art as a cultural expression? Do you think art is colonized somehow?
I think everything in life has been affected by colonialization. We cannot escape that, unfortunately. And I think the way we see the world is already conditioned so much because of that. Personally, I have to say that to me, art is mainly a necessity. I only work, or I'm only able to go through these very complex and long processes of documentary filmmaking because it allows me to understand the world a little bit more, or understand myself in relation to the world. So there is no doubt for me that art is a tool of self-exploration and understanding and growth, and personally and collectively also. Regarding the Ayoreo music, you know, to say that is it music? Is it not? It's also a very Western question, no? It's yes, I think the Ayoreo consider that as their music, and
of course.
And to me, that is what is important. It has a special rhythm. It has a special way of, it's more a telling than a singing. Is normally it goes normally with a paca, that is like a maraca, that they use to make the rhythm, and it can bring you into a sort of trance when you listen to it for a long time. And it's the way they communicate, and I just respect it as such.
That's fantastic, Arami. Well, thank you so much. I don't think we have any more questions, so I think it's time to say goodbye. Thank you so much for being here with us at the 8th edition of IberoDocs, and we wish you very luck with the film in future festivals and future international spaces. So yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you very much. This is Arami again. I know that I never said my name. Sorry, I'm very sorry. I just want to say that IberoDocs is a very special, it's a dear festival to me. And I'm really, really proud of all the things that you guys achieved. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Arami. And thank you, Danielle, for the interpretation.
Thank you, Danielle.
Bye.
Bye.